The story begins with a boy named Rakuro as he defeats an enormous boss monster. The sky's clear and the Princess Feria praises him, but he suddenly jumps into the air, smashing her in the face and telling her that she can also go to hell. The credits roll and we see he was playing a VR game called Feria Chronicle. Rakuro celebrates his victory and we learn that he's a guy who only likes to play trash games. VR games are the most common games now, but there were a ton of games that were made while the technology was developing, and many turned out to be trash. Rakuro gets some fresh air, and he feels like a convict who's finally free after clearing the game, but he wonders what he should play next. At school, we see a girl named Rei practicing how to talk to Rakuro. She waits for him to walk past, but one of his friends gets to him first, and she gets left behind. At the local game shop, the owner Mana is excited for the summer break, hoping it will bring a boost to her business. Rei visits the shop, but Mana tells her that Rakuro isn't there. Rei gets embarrassed and tells Mana that she's just there to look at the games and nothing else. But Mana knows her secret and tells her that Rakuro hasn't been there in a while because he's been busy trying to crack an extra special trash game. She explains that the game is infamous because of its terrible AI, insane enemy attack patterns, as well as being filled with bugs. Most players rage quit on just the first boss, and she notes that the final boss must be cleared in a mask and shorts. As the two are talking, Rakuro walks into the store, asking if there are any new games for him, and suddenly Rei disappears. Mana is surprised he already beat the game, and he starts telling her about it, saying that the princess was the source of all his problems. She would constantly cause chaos and get his party members killed, and if he ever tried to confront her, she would just refuse to move, and he would become stuck for hours. Mana can't believe he didn't give up, but Rakuro notes that in the final 3 minutes of the game after defeating the final boss, he's free to beat the crap out of her without getting into trouble, saying it was all worth it in the end. He wonders what he can play next to get the same high, but Mana suggests that he should try playing a game that isn't trash for once, telling him to try Shangri-La Frontier, also known as SLF, the most popular VR MMO with over 30 million players. He isn't sure about it at first, but Mana tells him he needs to experience what a good game is like, so he can better appreciate his trash games. Rakuro decides to check it out, and we learn that the game is considered God tier. It's made by the Utopia Entertainment Software Company, which was founded by the genius programmer Tsukuyo Tsukuri, so Rakuro has high hopes for the game. As soon as he starts the game, Rakuro's first task is to create a character and pick a job. He picks the Twin Blade Mercenary for its flexibility, and he chooses Wanderer as his origin, which gives him a bonus to his luck. He starts to customize his character, and he is surprised to find so many options. He gets excited and decides to go hardcore on his character design. Rakuro ends up making his character wear a bird mask, so he could hide his face since he's half naked. In this game, weapons are expensive, but it's possible to sell the starter equipment to make a profit. He names his character Sanraku, and he finally starts playing the game. He instantly skips the prologue and jumps straight into playing the game. He opens his eyes in a forest, and he is instantly impressed, because it feels as if he's moving in real life. He runs and climbs up a tree in order to test his character's agility, and he can finally feel the difference between this game and a trash game like Feria. Rakuro opens his map and he wonders why he didn't start at a tutorial town to begin with. It turns out that those who choose Wanderer as their origin start at a random location in the starting zone. He decides to head to the starting town, and he checks his stats along the way. He realizes he has low defense since he has no armor, but hopes his high luck stat will make up for it. He is suddenly attacked by a goblin, so he summons his twin blades to fight. The goblin charges at him, but he defeats it without breaking a sweat. He levels up to level 2, and he gets his hands on the goblin's axe. He gets distracted by something behind the bushes, and a monster bunny suddenly tries to attack him. The attack just misses, and it destroys the tree behind him. Rakuro thinks he would have died if he got hit, and the bunny attacks him again, but he manages to block it and even land a critical hit. The bunny doesn't give up, but Rakuro isn't impressed, because it's only aiming for his neck, which makes it too easy to predict. Rakuro levels up straight to level 4, and he learns the flash counter skill. He continues fighting other monsters in the forest, and after farming the bunnies for over 2 hours, He manages to obtain 2 of their swords. He ends up reaching level 12, and he puts most of his points into luck. He realizes he can't level up anymore in this area, so he decides to head over to the second town. As he heads over, he reaches a bridge he must cross, but it's guarded by a giant serpent boss. The game suggests that he fight it with a party of 3, but Rakuro just charges in. Meanwhile, in the starting town, the people are amazed when they see a knight wearing super high-level armor. The people wonder why someone so high-level is in the town, and we hear from her voice that she's a girl. She's there looking for Rakuro, but she doesn't see anyone with his name, which she finds strange, because all new players should start in that town. When she logs out, we see that it was Rei that was looking for him, and she's disappointed she couldn't find him. Back with Rakuro, he rushes at the snake. He decides to watch its attack patterns and just dodge to begin with. He realizes that its movements are pretty easy to read because it's just a starting boss. He thinks he can defeat it without taking a single hit, but when he tries to attack it, his blade is broken. He brings out his 2 special Vorpal blades, but when he tries to attack, it shoots venom at him. When he checks his status, Rakuro learns that he's been poisoned and will take a point of damage every 10 seconds. He realizes that he only has about 4 minutes to beat the boss, so he thinks he'll need to rely on his critical hits. He has learned that in this game, criticals aren't just random, but are triggered when an attack lands an ideal way or hits an enemy's weak point. Rakuro determines that the snake's weak point is its head, but he finds it hard to land a hit on it. He changes up his attack, using his screw-pierce skill on its body. He attacks the wound that he made, and he's able to trigger his critical hits. He keeps slashing, but he doesn't really know if he can beat it, because he doesn't even know how much HP it has. But he ends up landing a hit on the boss's eye, and he takes it out. Before he can check out his loot, he realizes he's still taking damage from the poison, so he rushes toward the town to look for an antidote. Meanwhile at the town, there are 2 players, Reiji and Mia, that are just outside. Reiji is glad that he's finally playing the game with his crush after 3 months of trying, but they see Rakuro running towards them, and Mia gets ready to attack him thinking he's a monster. Reiji points out that he has a name, so he must be a player, and he realizes that Rakuro must have been hit by the serpent's poison, so he points out the inn, where Rakuro can register his respawn point, but he must do it by getting into the bed. Rakuro reaches the inn just in time, but the innkeeper casually tells him about their amenities. Rakuro tells her to skip all the details, and he quickly tries to rent a room. He dives into his room, and he manages to register his respawn point, but he still ends up dying to the poison. He takes a break from the game, but he takes a moment to appreciate how good the game is. When he gets back in the game, he starts exploring the town, looking for a shop where he can buy maps and recovery items. He thinks about getting a new weapon to replace his twin blades, but he soon realizes that the people are staring at him since he's half naked, so he buys the cheapest set of clothes he can find, just to avoid people staring at him. He then visits a weapon shop, but finds that his Vorpal blades are better than anything in the shop. The shopkeeper tells him that he can make him a better weapon, but he will need to find the materials. Rakuro immediately goes mining for ore in a money swap, but becomes frustrated when he only gets 2 out of the 5 ores he needed, after trying for 30 minutes. A mud frog appears, and it annoys him as it splashes around, getting mud on him. Rakuro knows that it's resistant to slashing damage, since his clothes are made from its skin, so he switches to his goblin axe, and he takes it out. After a few hours, Rakuro returns to the shop with all the materials for his new weapon. The man points out that he found a rare marsh fossil, and it can be used to make a rare dagger. Rakuro likes the idea and leaves the task to the owner. Rakuro is excited as he checks out his new weapons, and the shopkeeper tells him that he can also upgrade the weapons, so he should come back when he has more materials. The man goes on to warn Rakuro about the monsters that come out during the night, suggesting he should get some better armor, but he just thinks it's the perfect chance to test out his new weapons. Meanwhile, Rei defeats the serpent boss with a single slash, and we learn she has searched the entire starting area for Rakuro, so she decides to check the second town. We see Rakuro fighting against a red-capped goblin, and he struggles against it, as it's not like any other goblin that he's fought before. The goblin calls for its friends, and Rakuro becomes surrounded. The goblins lunge at him, but there's suddenly a huge attack that wipes them all out, and an enormous wolf monster emerges. It's identified as a unique monster known as the Night Slayer, and Rakuro realizes that there's more to this game than he thought. Meanwhile, we see Rei as she meets Reiji and Mia, and they tell her about their encounter with Rakuro. Mia wants to attack her since she looks scary, but Reiji tells her she's also a player. Reiji describes Rakuro's character to Rei, and he tells her how he was poisoned, so he ran straight into the town. Rei is impressed by how he was able to beat the boss without even visiting the first town. She gives the couple an item for their help, and she dashes off in an instant. Mia is impressed by her speed, and Reiji recognizes the crest on her back as the guild which specifically hunts the Night Slayer unique monster. He notes that there are said to be 7 unique monsters in the game, but it's unclear when these monsters appear, which led to many of the top players forming guilds to hunt them. Mia thinks they are just rare monsters, but Reiji notes they are insanely strong, and that even after a year of the game being released, and with over 30 million players, not a single unique monster has ever been defeated. We see Rakuro as he faces the Night Slayer. He knows he will die if he takes a single hit, but he manages to parry the monster's attack. He starts sweating thinking how close it was, but he's glad he learned the perfect parry skill while he was grinding. He switches to his Vorpal blades, which deal bonus critical damage, and he starts to counterattack. But the clouds cover the moonlight, and the wolf seems to disappear. The wolf lunges out at him, but he dodges all of its attacks. The wolf disappears once again, and Rakuro tries to predict where it will appear from. He manages to parry its attack, but he finds that its fur is even tougher than the scales of the serpent boss. After fighting and landing over 200 critical hits, Rakuro doesn't feel like he has done any damage at all. His weapons are on the verge of breaking, and he thinks it's impossible for him to win, but this just makes him enjoy the game even more. He tries to land an attack on the wolf's eye, but he ends up getting pushed away. The Night Slayer suddenly howls, and it seems to paralyze Rakuro's body. It disappears once again, and in an instant, Rakuro has his legs cut off. He has 1 HP left, but he thinks that it's all over for him. He thinks about how insanely strong the wolf is, but thinks its strength is just part of its programming, so there must be a way to defeat it. He decides that instead of clearing the game, he will find a way to defeat it no matter what it takes. Rakuro respawns at the inn, and he finds he has been cursed by the Night Slayer's mark. He finds that his body has been marked, and he's no longer able to equip items on his torso or legs. He thinks he's screwed, and he finds that the curse can only be removed by defeating the wolf. As he walks through the town, he starts thinking the game is trash, but he thinks about all the other trash games he's beaten, so he refuses to let this get the better of him. He checks his status, and finds that from just fighting the unique monster, he was able to level up to 28. He allocates his stat points, but realizes he has completely neglected his vitality stat, so he thinks he's a complete glass cannon, and with 2 of his armor slots sealed, he thinks he's doomed. He wishes that his high luck stat would give him good luck, and at that moment, a bunny suddenly bounces on his head. The bunny waves at him, so he starts chasing after it. Rakuro thinks it must be some kind of event where he can get a free item by catching it. He corners it in a dead end, but the bunny suddenly summons a door. The bunny gets away, and when Rakuro approaches the door, he finds that it's a unique scenario invitation from the Rabbit Country. Rakuro remembers reading about this online, that besides the main quest of the game, there are countless side quests, some of which come in the form of unique scenarios, but it's not clear how they are triggered. However, they are said to provide some of the best rewards, so there are even guilds which try to hunt for them. Rakuro gets excited thinking his luck is finally paying off, and we see he has entered a world filled with rabbits. The bunny from earlier welcomes him, introducing herself as Emil, and Rakuro is shocked that it can speak. She tells Rakuro that everyone has been talking about him, because he took on the Night Slayer by himself even though he was so weak. Rakuro thinks he didn't stand a chance, but Emil notes that the marking on his body is proof that the Night Slayer acknowledged him. Rakuro wonders if Emil really is an NPC since she talks so much, but he remembers that the curse mark also gives him bonus dialogue options. Emil starts leading him to meet her boss, and Rakuro worries they might want revenge since he hunted so many bunnies in the beginning, but Emil tells him not to worry. Emil brings him to the rabbit palace, and she tells him that he's the first person to ever visit. Rakuro gets excited hearing this, and he thinks his luck is finally turning around. He thinks he'll be able to get a unique reward, but his attitude completely changes as he comes face to face with the Rabbit King. Meanwhile at the game shop, Rei gets caught sneaking around, but Mana tells her that Rakuro isn't there. She thinks that since it's summer break, he would probably be spending all his time in the game. Rei mentions how she still hasn't been able to find him, but Mana tells her not to give up. At Rakuro's house, his sister Rumi heads out, while Rakuro looks up the forums about other people who have been to the rabbit country. He finds that they all just follow the quest to fight a snake boss, but no one has ever mentioned meeting the Rabbit King, so he thinks he has found something special. He thinks back to his meeting with the king, who introduces himself as Vash. He admires Rakuro's Vorpal soul, but Rakuro isn't sure what that means. The king offers to get him up to snuff, and Rakuro realizes it's a training quest. He immediately accepts, even calling the king his bro, but Vash starts to approach him menacingly. Rakuro thinks he said the wrong thing, but Vash actually takes a liking to him, and he orders Emil to take care of him. Emil is excited to show him around, but Rakuro says he's been playing for a while so he needs to take a break. As Vash is leaving, he gives Rakuro a collar which automatically equips. Upon examining the item, the collar seems to reduce his experience by half, but it overdoubles his stat points that he gets from leveling up. Rakuro tries to take it off, but Vash says it's impossible unless he allows it, saying hardship is necessary to get stronger. But Rakuro can't believe he has been given yet another restriction. As he thinks about the item, he realizes it's actually pretty overpowered. He realizes the time, and he remembers he had an appointment with his friend. He loads up a fighting game called Berserk Online, and we learn it was a trash game that he was once really into. He meets up with his friend Katsuo, and they prepare to have a match. Katsuo shows off his new glitch arm attack, but Rakuro counters with his quick fist technique, blocking all of his friend's attacks. It looks like Rakuro has the upper hand, but thanks to a texture glitch with his fist, Katsuo lands a hit on him, and he loses the fight. Rakuro notes how he's only been fighting NPCs lately, so he's glad he got a chance to PvP with him. Katsuo can't believe he is really playing SLF, but Rakuro admits he's been having fun with it, mentioning the 7 unique monsters that no one has been able to defeat, and he doesn't plan on giving up until he beats the wolf. Katsuo becomes interested, thinking he might try the game out as well, and he mentions how he even emailed their mutual friend about it. We see a girl named Asha as she receives the message. She's surprised to learn Rakuro has started playing the game, but she continues cutting down some other players. We see she's a player killer at level 99, and she thinks about paying Rakuro a visit. When Rakuro gets back into the game, he tells Emil he wants to get to the 3rd town before he spends more time in the Rabbit Kingdom. He notes that since it's summer break, there are a lot of new players, so he wants to get ahead so he doesn't get stuck competing for resources. Emil doesn't really know what he's talking about, but offers to help him out and join his party. As they prepare to head off, they are noticed by 2 girls who find Emil cute, and they wonder how it's possible to have a bunny as a pet. Rakuro wants to keep his scenario a secret, so he quickly runs away, but one of the girls takes a picture, planning to ask about it on the forum. They get outside the town, but there is suddenly a monster that comes charging at them. However, as it gets closer, it notices the markings on Rakuro's body, and it immediately runs away instead. Rakuro goes after it, chasing it into a wall, and as it tries to change direction, he predicts its movements, and he finishes it off. Emil compliments him, wondering what they should do next, and Rakuro decides to skip through and head straight to the next boss. He asks Emil if she has any information about the boss, and she reveals it's a creature known as the Mud Digger. Rakuro realizes he's in trouble hearing the name, and they end up in an area completely covered with a swamp. The mud makes it almost impossible to move properly, but it's too late to change his plan, as the enormous Mud Digger suddenly appears. Rakuro wonders how he will be able to fight it without his speed. The beast dives into the mud and starts approaching them, but thanks to learning some new skills after fighting the Night Slayer, he uses his evade to slide out of the way. The boss lunges at him, but he manages to stop it, and using his upgraded parry skill, he lands a hit with his repel counter. However, his skills have a cooldown, and the boss lunges at him once again, and he doesn't know what to do. But Emil suddenly takes out a book, launching a magic blade that connects with the boss. Rakuro realizes he doesn't have to fight alone, and he tries to attack while the boss is down, but the mud slows him down. The boss gets back up, but Rakuro lands an attack with his skill and knocks it back. He jumps up, telling Emil to attack with her spell, and she launches another magic blade. The boss seems to be defeated, and Rakuro falls down, taking some fall damage. He compliments Emil on her attack, but he suddenly notices that the boss is gone. The ground starts to shake, and the mud seems like it's pulling him in, so he quickly grabs Emil and throws her away. The boss reemerges, and Rakuro gets thrown into the air. We learn that this is the second phase of the boss, and Rakuro realizes it's trying to take him out with fall damage. He curses whoever designed the fight, because it's a mechanic that couldn't be dodged. He thinks it's all over for him, but Emil suddenly rushes over with a scroll which teleports them. They reappear above the boss, and using the momentum from his fall, he triggers an attack skill known as Meteor Fall, slamming into the boss and defeating it. Rakuro survives with just 1 HP, and he levels up to 29. As they continue to the next area, he eats some herbs to recover some of his HP, and Emil gets excited about getting to the next town. Rakuro wonders how to hide her so they don't cause another scene, so Emil shows him her secret bracelet, which she uses and allows her to transform into a girl. Rakuro is stunned by the transformation, but Emil soon returns to her bunny form, telling him that it's exhausting for her to transform, and she can only last for about 5 minutes. They make it to the third town, but when they get to the gate, the guards wonder why he is half naked. They notice the markings on his body, but Emil suddenly makes up a wild story about him being a great warrior who was reborn. They attract the attention of the other players, but there are some who give Rakuro a strange look. They are allowed into the town, but Rakuro is suddenly grabbed by a girl named Animalia, and she seems to recognize him, but he has no idea who she is. We see that a few hours earlier, after Rakuro ran away from the two girls, one of them posted his picture on the forum, asking how it's possible to tame a talking bunny. Some of the players mock him for his outfit, but when Animalia notices the post, she thinks it's a cheat, since only cats and dogs can be tamed as pets in the game. We learn she's an animal lover, and she immediately heads off to find Rakuro. Other players notice the markings on his body, and some of the more advanced players recognize it as the Night Slayer's markings. While it's not rare for new players to encounter the Night Slayer, there are people who wonder how he got the curse. This even attracts the attention of a player known as Orcelot, the leader of the biggest player-killer clan. The rumors continue to spread, and it seems there is quite the spotlight on Rakuro. Animalia begs to learn how he tamed a Vorpal bunny, but he refuses to reveal his secret. He pretends to not know what she's talking about, but they are suddenly attacked by a masked player, who tells him that it's better to share. Rakuro recognizes them as the Pencil Knight, but she removes her mask, telling him she goes by Asha. Rakuro recalls that they used to play the trash game called Unite Rounds, where we see players robbing a shop, taking all the items inside, but as they leave, they encounter Rakuro, who steals everything from them. We learn that the players were supposed to work together to protect the kingdom from the monsters. But because of the extremely low drop rate, the players struggled to make progress, so they decided to rob each other, because it's far more efficient than grinding. Asha rose to power, and she took control of the kingdom, manipulating the players to do her bidding. We see Rakuro and Katsu in her castle, as they prepare to fight Asha, because she is abusing the players in the game, so they want to put an end to her reign of terror. They see her in the throne room, and they prepare to take her on, as she tells them that she is the game's final boss. We return to SLF, as Rakuro reveals that their fight in Unite Rounds ended in a draw. He sees that Asha is at level 99, noting that he isn't even close to her level, so he knows that he's at a disadvantage. She charges at him, throwing poison knives, but he avoids them, and she is impressed that he is able to survive, considering that he is still at level 29. He tells her that he has the skills to make up for his low level, and Animalia recognizes Asha, revealing that she is the vice leader of the player-killer clan, Ashura Kai. She reveals that she has a reputation for defeating high-level players, so the players call her the Giant Killer, but Rakuro recalls that she was the giant who got herself killed in Unite Rounds. She laughs it off, but she starts attacking him, and they exchange blows, as she reveals that the leader of Ashurakai ordered her to gather information about the unique scenario involving the bunny. As their fight continues, he realizes that he can't defeat her because her level is too high, but he notices that she is keeping him away from the gate, thinking she is trying to stay away from the other players. She confirms this, but she tells him that he will never reach the gate. Animalia wants to know about the Vorpal bunny, thinking Emil must know something, so she approaches Emil, but her transformation wears off, returning her to her bunny form. Animalia goes wild, and seeing this, Rakuro comes up with a plan. He kicks Asha away, knowing she is going easy on him, and Emil jumps to him as he starts running for the gate. Asha chases after them, but she is stopped by an explosion as Animalia blocks her path, saying she won't let Asha put the bunny in danger. Rakuro was about to reach the gate, but Asha's clanmates get in the way, revealing that they have orders to hunt him down. They charge at him, and he struggles to dodge their attacks, as he notes that they are far stronger than him. Animalia uses her curse spells, releasing magic beams, but Asha absorbs the attack, and reflects it at Animalia, knocking her down. She receives 5 debuffs, as Asha reveals that she is holding an item, which reflects spells, saying she would have been in trouble without it. Rakuro continues to struggle against the player killers, as he wonders how he can defeat them because they are too strong for him. But Rei suddenly arrives, launching a powerful strike, which smashes the ground, killing one of the players instantly. The player killers recognize her as the attack master, and she recognizes Rakuro's character, so she becomes overjoyed, because she is finally able to find him. We learn that Mana told Rei that Rakuro is playing as Sanraku, and she encouraged Rei to continue searching for him, so that she can tell him how she feels. She returns to her house, where we see trash games in her room, revealing that she tried to play them, but she didn't like any of them. She thinks that SLF is her only chance to get closer to Rakuro, so she is determined to find him there. She logs into the game, and she receives a message from her sister, telling her to find a certain player, because her sister wants to talk to him. The message reveals the location of the player, and it even has a picture of him, revealing that the player's name is Sanraku. She makes her way to the location, and she uses super speed, allowing her to travel with haste. She sees Rakuro being attacked by the player killers, thinking this is her chance to talk to him, so she leaps forward and launches a devastating attack. The impact grabs Asha's attention, thinking the player killers are having a hard time against Rakuro because playing trash games has refined his skills, allowing him to keep up with high-level players. As the dust clears, she sees the attack master, so she becomes excited, saying she is glad she went after Rakuro. But Animalia reveals that she used 5 spells, knowing Asha's item has already reached its limit, so it won't protect her from Animalia's ultimate skill. In a flashback, we see Rei walking to school, when she sees Rakuro, who keeps talking about the trash games he's playing, noting that he's always smiling. She falls in love with him, and since then, she's always been thinking about him, wanting to see him every day. She tries to talk to him, but she can't muster the courage to do it in person, so she thinks about talking to him inside a game. Back in the present, Rakuro notes that he's been saved by a character named Saiger Zero, thinking she isn't a player killer. But he suspects that she also wants to learn about the unique scenario, so he doesn't trust her, thinking about finding a way out. Animalia prepares to use her ultimate skill, saying she will self-destruct and take Asha with her. Asha panics, knowing the item won't protect her, so she tries to stop Animalia, but she activates her skill, killing Asha in an instant. A dark energy covers the area, grabbing everyone's attention, and Rakuro realizes that the player killers are distracted. He uses this chance to escape, stepping on Rei's head, and telling her that he's sorry. He jumps past the player killers, and he runs to the gate, as Rei continues to attack them, allowing him to escape. The player killers blame Rei for their failure, but she recalls how Rakuro told her that he's sorry, causing her to become flustered. The player killers note that she's acting weird, and one of them charges in, thinking she's wide open, but she slices him in half, scaring his companions. She reveals that she's angry, blaming them for Rakuro's sudden departure, so she kills all of them. Meanwhile, Emil opens a gate, allowing Rakuro to escape to the rabbit country. Emil reveals that she ran out of magic because of her transformation spell, but she was able to replenish it by drinking a potion. Rakuro receives a message from Asha, telling him that she didn't lose to him, and he was only able to escape because of the attack master. She says that she wants to talk to him, inviting him to call Katsuo for a meeting and unite rounds. But he finds her suspicious because she doesn't want to talk to him in SLF. He also receives a message from Katsuo, who just received an invitation from Asha, wondering if Rakuro was going to back out, but he decides to attend the meeting. He tells Emil that he's going to proceed with the unique scenario, so she takes him to a coliseum, where he is about to undergo serious battle training. She tells him that he needs to defeat 10 monsters, and that he can only use vorpal weapons during the event. He agrees to this, saying he is ready to take on the monsters, but as Emil opens the gate, a group of level 65 pack hounds appear. Rakuro panics, wondering why he needs to go up against a group of level 65 monsters, but Emil tells him that this is how the event works, and he ends up dying. We cut to Rei, who is happy that she was able to see Rakuro. She thinks about sending him a friend request the next time they meet, thinking he will accept it and they will become friends in real life. But she reveals that she wasn't able to find him after she defeated the player killers, so she wonders where he went. We see Rakuro in the Colosseum as Emil reveals that this is his 7th attempt. The hounds charge at him as he notes that he is having a hard time because of their synchronized attacks. He thinks that there is a pack leader giving orders, and he sees a hound at a distance, thinking it's their leader. So he attacks it, but it starts running away, and the hounds charge at him, but he realizes that their attacks are no longer synchronized. He pursues the leader, throwing his knife, which slows it down, and he catches up to it, landing critical hits in rapid succession. The leader dies, and without their leader, the hounds can no longer launch synchronized attacks, so he easily defeats them. Emil congratulates him on clearing the first round, and she reveals the next opponent, which is a monster with tentacles. He uses hit-and-run tactics, allowing him to secure victory on his 4th attempt. He easily defeats the 3rd opponent, which is a goblin berserker, and the 4th opponent is even easier, because it's a boar, and he has the advantage because of his rodeo experience. But he struggles against his 5th opponent, which is a toxic eagle, and he dies over 100 times before he is able to defeat it. He wins against the 6th and 7th opponents on his first try, because he is able to figure out the monster's tactics, and the 8th opponent is a 2-headed tiger, which he defeats on his 2nd try. The 9th opponent is a golem, and he struggles to formulate a strategy to defeat it, but he is able to win by stripping it down after he dodges its attack. Rakuro celebrates, knowing there is only one opponent left, and he reaches level 31, but he isn't happy about this, because he could have gained more levels if it wasn't for the collar. He tells Emil to reveal the last opponent, but Vash appears, telling him that his timing is perfect, because Vash just caught a powerful monster, thinking it would be a great opponent for him. Vash releases the restraints, revealing that it's a sorcerer who tried to fuse with a tree to prolong its lifespan. He thinks that Rakuro isn't strong enough to defeat it, so he sets a different clear condition, telling Rakuro that he will win if he can survive for 5 minutes. He thinks that it's too easy, but the monster attacks him, and he struggles to keep up with it, as Vash tells him that he's filled with confidence, wondering if he has the skills to back it up. We learn that this monster is nothing like the others, and Rakuro is the first player to ever fight it, but it's far stronger than the opponents he faced in the Colosseum, as we see it's at level 120. Rakuro does his best to avoid its attacks, sliding under its roots, and he even lands a hit, but he realizes it's immune to physical attacks. He gets pushed back by its chains, but Emil tells him he only has 4 minutes to go. He has trouble predicting the movements of the roots, and he notes that its chains also apply a debuff. He does his best to defend himself, but the monster starts attacking with magic as well. It's able to use different types of magic, and Rakuro doesn't think he's going to be able to survive the 5 minutes. He keeps on dodging, but the attacks start to get more intense. The timer reaches 3 minutes, but he starts to become exhausted. He starts to accept that he's going to lose, but he starts to realize he has fallen into the habit of giving up too easily and taking the easy route. He snaps himself out of it, refusing to give up. He runs along its roots, charging straight at the monster, but Vash wonders what he can accomplish. Rakuro manages to disarm the monster, preventing it from using magic, but it starts to go berserk with its roots. He manages to grab onto its staff, but the monster goes wild chasing after him. Emil cheers him on, telling him there's only a minute left. He does his best to dodge, but his path gets blocked, and he gets grabbed by a chain, which gives him debuffs to his speed. He realizes he won't be able to dodge anymore, and the monster attacks him, so he throws its staff away. The monster targets the staff instead, managing to reclaim it, but Rakuro calls it dumb for not finishing him off, as the timer counts down to 0. But the monster starts blasting him anyway, and Rakuro wonders why it's not over, but Vash ends up stopping the creature and crushing it with a single hit. Rakuro wonders how he could damage it, and Vash reveals its physical immunity was only active when it was holding its staff. Emil congratulates him on his success, and Rakuro gets excited for his reward. Vash declares him an honorary rabid, giving him a title, but Rakuro can't believe that's all he gets. Vash removes his collar, and he successfully completes his unique scenario, but Rakuro can't believe he didn't get anything out of it. He spies on Vash, wanting to get a rare item, and he spots a fancy-looking box. He wonders what kind of rare item it might contain, and when Vash opens it, it just turns out to be a carrot, which he enjoys. Rakuro logs out of the game and realizes it's late, so he decides to get some rest. When he gets back in the game, we see he was given a bonus scenario, but he doesn't know how to start it, so he decides to get to the next area first. However, he remembers all the people who are after him, and the marks on his body are easily recognizable, so he doesn't know what to do. Emil suggests hiding his whole body, but Rakuro doesn't know how it's possible. Emil takes him to a shop in the Rabbit Palace, where he meets the merchant Peets. Peets recognizes him as the Birdman that everyone has been talking about, but Rakuro shows that it's just a mask. This gives Emil an idea, and she asks Peets about a certain clothing item. It turns out to just be a sheet that covers his whole body. They are able to walk around town without being recognized, but he starts losing it, thinking he looks ridiculous. Emil tells him to bear with it until they get out of the town, and Rakuro notes that there are 3 locations they can head to next. There's a prismatic forest that contains a labyrinth cave, a lake area in the crater of a dead volcano, and the iron ruins of divinity. Emil suggests going to the lake, but Rakuro ends up deciding on going to the prismatic forest. As he explains his reasoning behind his choice, Emil is distracted as she recognizes someone, but when Rakuro looks over, he sees that it's Rei who is watching them, and he finds her pretty sus. Meanwhile, we meet Orsalot, the leader of a shurikai, as he reprimands his men because they failed to complete their mission. They blame the attack master, saying they weren't expecting her to interfere, but Orsalot reminds them that they are dealing with a unique scenario, so top players are likely to show up. He orders them to pursue Rakuro, saying they should threaten him to obtain information about Emil. Asha reminds everyone that they have another target, but Orsalot tells her that they can't defeat it, thinking unique monsters are unbeatable. He reveals that they are the only ones who know how to make it spawn, but they think that it's not worth fighting, and Asha calls them useless. We learn that the members of a shurikai were hated by everyone because they used to kill players indiscriminately. But after an update which made killing players more difficult, they decided to change their strategy and stay away from danger. Asha thinks that her guildmates can't help her with the unique monster, which is known as the Tim Guard, but she is determined to defeat it, saying she is willing to do anything to win. We return to Rakuro as he sees Rei, causing him to freak out because he finds her intimidating. He recalls how he stepped on her, and he thinks that she wants to get back at him, so he decides to run away. The player killers notice him, and they see through his disguise, so they chase after him. They think that he's trying to escape to the Iron Ruins, so they tell their colleagues to set up an ambush. But we learn that he took a detour to deceive them, and he's still headed to the prismatic forest. The player killers lose sight of him, and he is about to leave the town, but he sees Rei, so he becomes scared, thinking she's going to kill him. But she just sends him a friend request, and she starts acting weird, causing him to become confused. He finds her suspicious because she is smart enough to see through his deception, thinking she has an ulterior motive. But he is confident in his ability to deal with other players, so he decides to accept her friend request. She is overjoyed to see this, and we learn that she was able to find him purely by chance because she lost sight of him. But she recalls how she went to the forest when she first arrived at the town, so she decided to go there. Rei offers to help Rakuro level up, but he doesn't trust her, so he tells her that he doesn't need her help. She apologizes for being rude, wishing him luck, and they bid each other farewell. After he leaves, she notes that Emil didn't have a name over her head, thinking she must be an NPC, and Rei is happy that she was finally able to talk to Rakuro. The player killers realize that they have been deceived, and they make their way to the forest, but they see her at the gate, causing them to become frightened, so they decide to run away. Rakuro enters the prismatic forest, and he realizes that there are plenty of creatures in the area. He sees a butterfly, thinking it will drop something expensive, so he kills it and takes the nectar it was carrying. He reads the item description, and he learns that it's fun to throw because it's very fragile. He thinks about gathering more items before he takes on the area boss, and he equips a throwing knife, revealing that he was traumatized by his encounter with the toxic eagle, so he learned to use projectiles. He throws it at a flower, causing a mantis to appear, and he attacks it, killing it in one hit. He checks his inventory, realizing that he was able to collect plenty of items, but they notice a commotion, and they see a giant beetle fighting a swarm of bees. We learn that the beetle entered the bees' territory, searching for nectar, and the queen isn't happy about this, so she orders the swarm to attack. But they can't penetrate its armor, and it continues to make its way to their nest. After some time, they are able to crack its armor, but it starts flying, charging at the queen, and killing her in one hit. The bees decide to retreat, and the beetle starts eating the nectar, but upon seeing Rakuro, it decides to go after him. He runs away, wondering why it's chasing him, and Emil thinks that it must be because of the nectar. He throws it away, hitting a mantis, so the beetle starts attacking it, and he sees an opening, so he lunges at the beetle, targeting the cracks on its armor to land several critical hits. He manages to defeat it, and he realizes that his inventory is now full, so he decides to stop collecting items. While walking around the forest, he sees webs on a tree, as he recalls that the area boss is called the clown spider, so he concludes that they are close to its location. He sees a cave, and he decides to enter it, ready to fight the boss. We cut to a group of players in the forest, as they discuss how the monsters in the area are no match for them, so they decide to fight the boss. But as they enter the cave, their leader gets stuck on a web, as the clown spider appears. We return to Rakuro, as he tries to enter the cave, but he realizes that he can't enter because there are still players inside. He sees the leader of the group as he gets crushed to death, causing the entrance to open. Rakuro enters the cave, and he sees the bodies of the other players. He tells Emil to stand back because he wants to defeat the clown spider alone, and he scales the wall, avoiding the webs along the way. We learn that he has learned new skills in the arena, thinking it will help him defeat the boss. He sees a boulder approaching him, so he uses his leap skill to avoid it, but he is about to hit a web. However, he holds onto it and steps on it, revealing that he knows which parts of the web aren't sticky. He sees more boulders approaching, so he uses a skill to increase his speed, allowing him to dodge all of them. He reaches the boss, and it tries to attack him, but he charges in, launching a combination of attacks, which causes it to fall down. It crashes to the ground, but he thinks that it's still alive, and he sees heavy objects attached to the ceiling, so he decides to use them, dropping them down to crush the boss. But it gets back up, and he decides to fight it head-on, thinking it's nothing compared to the Night Slayer. He delivers a devastating attack, hitting its weak spot, and killing it in an instant. He tells Emil that the fight was too easy, saying he didn't even take any damage, and at that moment, he receives a message from Asha. We see Katsuo as he defeats a boss, and he also receives the message, which tells them they should spend time together. Meanwhile, Rei tells Mana that she was able to talk to Rakuro, but Mana reveals that he no longer visits the shop, thinking he must be addicted to SLF. As she walks around the city, she sees Rakuro reading a magazine, and he learns that SLF is about to get a major update, thinking it must be what Asha was talking about. We learn that he had a meeting with Katsuo and Asha, where Asha invited them to fight the Tim Guard with her, and Katsuo is excited to hear this, because he always wanted to fight a unique monster. She reveals that she fought the boss with the strongest members of her clan, and they didn't stand a chance. But she thinks that the three of them might be able to defeat it, saying she wants them to fight it after the major update. Rakuro wonders why she's inviting them, because their levels aren't that high, but she tells them not to worry, because their skills matter more than their levels. She offers to compensate them for their help, and Rakuro decides to join her, but he thinks that she's hiding something, saying she should tell them the full story. Rakuro leaves the store, and he sees Rei waiting for him. She greets him, but he struggles to remember who she is, and it takes him a while to recall that she was his classmate. She tells him that she also plays SLF, asking him if they can play together, but at that moment, he receives a message from Asha, telling him that she is waiting for him, so he dashes away. She notes that he bought plenty of energy drinks, so she thinks that he will be playing SLF for a while, and she decides to look for him there. He logs into the game, and Emil welcomes him back, asking him what they will be doing today. He tells her that he will be fighting the Tomb Guard after the major update, and he will have to leave her while he's fighting it. But she suddenly freaks out, saying she needs to tell her father about this. He wonders what's wrong with her, as he recalls his meeting with Asha, where he asked her what he should do with Emil while they're fighting the Tomb Guard. She advises him to keep Emil out of it, because when an NPC dies in SLF, they never return, and we see Emil running to her father, thinking it's going to be trouble. They meet with Vash, and it seems he knows the Tomb Guard, saying Rakuro doesn't stand a chance. Rakuro notes that he's just going as a support, and he tries to persuade Vash to give him information. Vash thinks it's a suicide mission, but Rakuro claims he doesn't plan on losing, saying his honor is on the line. Vash reveals that the Tomb Guard was also an honorable man, but lost his wife over a lie, and became cursed with an undying body. He thinks it would be good if he was put out of his misery, so he takes Rakuro over to the forge. Rakuro gets excited seeing this, and we meet the blacksmith Billik. Vash asks for his Vorpal blades, and he admires them, deciding to ascend them. Billik is shocked hearing this, realizing that Vash will be doing it himself. He goes to get the forge ready, and Vash asks if Rakuro has any other good materials to work with. Rakuro checks his inventory, and decides on using the shell from the giant beetle. As Vash prepares to work, Billik tells Rakuro he's lucky, because it's been years since Vash last worked the forge, noting that he was the master blacksmith before he became king. He starts hammering the blade, as magic circles pop out and are then absorbed. Rakuro wonders what's going on, and Billik reveals that ascending involves reading the memories and experience of a weapon and ascending it into its true form, saying that Vorpal weapons remember their battles against strong foes. Vash starts singing as he works, and Billik is eager to see how it will turn out. Vash finishes the upgrade, and reveals that the blades have new names, the moon blades of waxing and waning. Rakuro excitedly checks them out, and finds that the waxing blade is better against higher level enemies, consuming his HP to deal more damage, while the waning blade is able to refill his HP, and there's also a special gauge that fills up after dealing critical hits that allows the blades to fuse. Rakuro is excited to try it out, but gets a notification that he doesn't have enough stats to equip them, and he realizes he will need to wait until level 50 to use them. Rakuro meets up with Asha and Katsuo, but they are annoyed at him for being 3 hours late. He mentions he was able to get information about the Tomb Guard, so Asha decides to forgive him. Hearing that the Tomb Guard is an undead monster, Asha thinks of something, saying she will be back later that night. Rakuro wonders what they should do in the meantime, so Asha gives them a map and a fishing rod, telling them to grind at the iron ruins. As Asha is leaving, she spots Emil around Rakuro's neck. She thinks it's a dumb disguise, but Rakuro claims it's the latest fashion trend, and Asha is shocked when it seems to fool Katsuo. Asha heads off, and Katsuo thinks they should go as well, but Emil's ears start to get tired holding onto Rakuro, and Katsuo is finally able to notice her, wishing he could have a unique NPC of his own.